I show that we have 59 members online, which is fantastic. Great. Well, welcome everyone to the Colorado Department of Public Safety Technology Procurement and Owner Training. I am Keegan Wilson. I will be presenting today with the help of other Operation Excellence teammates. We're going to do a few quick introductions. I am Keegan Wilson. I have been with Colorado Department of Public Safety since October. The technology product director is a new role, so I probably am a new face to many. Next, I'm going to introduce the IT director for Colorado Department of Public Safety as Carolyn. Carolyn, would you like to say hello?
Hi, everybody. Carolyn Canyon. I'm the IT director. I have been since about 2020. And welcome the addition of Keegan to this team.
Thank you, Carolyn. And next, I have Corey Niemeyer, the Operation Excellence Director.
Hi, everyone. It's Corey here. Good to see y'all.
And then next, we have the Accessibility Specialist, Lindsay Joseph.
Hi, everyone. Lindsay Joseph. Good to see you all here. Thanks for coming.
Great. Today's objectives for this training is to define the key terms and key roles. I think that is a critical piece that has since been missing from this procurement process. We'll also discuss the current Colorado Department of Public Safety OIT procurement process, as well as the potential move to the Surface Hub in the future. We'll discuss the digital accessibility impact on technology products and services as well with the help of the Operation Excellence team and accessibility team. Some key terms, and I'm fully aware everyone here can read, so I just wanted to cover what a product is. It's a named collection of business capabilities valuable to a defined customer segment, may comprise software, hardware, data, facilities, and services, and may be a repeatable service, such as a subscription or a platform. Software, the set of instructions, data, or programs used to operate a computer and execute specific tasks. We're all pretty familiar with what a software is, as we use them every single day within our workspaces. Hardware is the external or internal physical aspects, devices, or equipment that we add on to these devices, such as input, output, storage, communication, processing, and so much more. More key terms, technical services. These include application or web service that enable our agency in the creation, management, and optimization of or access to the information and business processes. So technical services can comprise of many different things. Those are services that are provided by a vendor for business process services, application, or infrastructure. I also included here voice services, as we will be moving hopefully in the future to allowing users to request voice services through Service Hub for CDPS. Voice services include those desktop phones, soft phones like Jabber or WebEx. And if you've seen, we have a cutover coming to WebEx from Jabber in the near future as well. I wanted to go over some key roles. The requester, typically that's you. This is the person who submits the request for either hardware, software, or technical services. This person can be anyone at CDPS, typically a staff member, but the best practice is to have the approval from your supervisor and divisional budget staff before placing the request so that everyone is familiar with what it is that you're requesting. The product owner is a strategic entity as they focus on the product's vision, agency's objectives, and the market with regards to what OIT's primary target market would be within the agency. Product owners are tactical and they make decisions to best suit the divisional needs. Business owners. These are the agency's data stewards who have the authority to authorize or deny access to that data within that software or technical service. They're responsible for the accuracy, integrity, and timeliness of the data. Whereas a technical owner is the person within the division that can assist the IT team to create, develop, and deliver the product so that it aligns with the business case and requirements needed for the division. They seem to act as the bridge between the business side and the development side of OIT, ensuring that there is effective communication and collaboration. And then there's the end user. This encompasses pretty much everyone at Colorado Department of Public Safety, as well as volunteers, interns, third-party vendors, and anyone else who wants to have access to the non-public and public Colorado Department of Public Safety software, hardware, voice, or technical services. Additional key roles are those who help assist Colorado Department of Public Safety in these technical decisions. That includes myself. I work as the liaison between OIT and yourself, the Colorado Department of Public Safety employees. I advocate for CDPS's best interests with OIT. I support Colorado Department of Public Safety with technical understanding to help employees understand our process. My help deciphers risk and how it applies to CDPS. I work closely with Carolyn, our ITD, as well as the support staff, the divisions, vendors, product development teams, change management teams, implementation teams, infrastructure, firewall, network, and so on. Then you have our ITD. That would be Carolyn. She works as the agency's liaison for OIT's customer office and focuses on the business relationship management of the customer's strategic partners. She also collaborates closely with the service management office throughout the entire service lifecycle. She additionally works with the ITPM, which is your portfolio manager. Give me 1 second. I think I lost connection. Did that bring it back up, Corey?
Yep, we can see it again.
Sorry about that. So the IT portfolio manager is the IT team member who manages the strategic administration and organization of projects across CDPS. They focus on the gating, strategic projects, operational demands, budget, and prioritization. Next, we have the business analyst for IT. They are team members that will be requesting the requirements for a demand in order to establish the operational demand or strategic project. They will work with the requester through the discovery phase of OIT's ePMO project gating process. There may be some upcoming changes to this process, but at this time, we are currently under their operating project gating process. This IT member will also hold discovery sessions, workshops, and requirement meetings. The business analyst also works closely with the solutions engineer, as does the ITD and the ITPM. The solutions engineer is the team member that will work with the requester to fully vet the software or technical services that are being requested at CDPS. They will work closely with the vendor in order to review the business case, possible risks to include security, accessibility, and purchasing. They then provide CDPS's TPD, myself, and the ITD, which is Carolyn, with a risk assessment to help determine the approval or denial of that product or service that has been requested. And then finally, we have the IT steering committee. This is comprised of senior leadership across CDPS and the divisions, with an additional divisional member designated to attend those monthly meetings with their leadership. They are needed when a project spans multiple departments or division, as well as when it's high risk or high visibility. The committee includes management representatives across the division and acts collectively as that project's champion. These are key members for decision-making. They can provide resources, assist in securing funding, act as liaisons, and fill the other roles defined within the project as needed. We are also looking at creating a division technical group to advise this leadership group at the steering committee about all technical aspects of the demand from an end user perspective. This is typically someone who has firsthand knowledge of the software or services in order to provide us an insight as to how they would utilize that product. So meet your CDPS IT team. We have 2 designated solution engineers, SEs, Paul Patillo and Eric Fitz, We also have customer support staff from OIT to include the ITD, which is Carolyn, ITPM Amy Del Rio, ITPM Craig Hegman, who is new to our team, as well as the business analyst, Wendy Stanton, business analyst Harnett. I'm not going to butcher her last name, so forgive me. And business analyst, soon to come, James Lovelace. Here we have two images, so we have a familiar face with the names. And as you've met Carolyn already. So the IT CDPS procurement process goes through a software evaluation. This software evaluation is kicked off when the requester submits the IT procurement form, which is a Google form at this time. OIT, then myself and Carolyn, assist in assigning the solution engineer to then move that software service through the evaluation process. The solution engineer will then schedule a discovery with the requester to gain more information about what does this look like for the requester. The solution engineer then contacts the vendor for information gathering to include security, accessibility, and contract terms or agreements. The solution engineer then completes their written evaluation, which is then sent back to the ITD or myself, in which we take a scoring, as you can see here, for the risk assessment. If there is high risk in security and accessibility, we will then have to make the decision as to whether it meets CDPS's best interest. We then contact the end user with the approval or denial. And this is typically done via email. Going back, I just wanted to note, this does require a 30-day business process. This does not start until the SE is assigned. So while it is submitted on the date by the requester, we have to assign the SE. Typically, that's done within the day that it is submitted. However, if it's submitted over a weekend or we're not in the office due to a holiday, we would get it on the following business day. The number one step, of course, is submitting your request. I'm going to switch screens real quick, and I'm going to show you that form. So this is the CDPS OIT procurement request form as it stands today. It outlines the 30 days for review. It'll ask you if you'd like to record your email. And then we will request accessibility documentation for proof that the vendor is meeting the accessibility compliance. This could include the VPAT or a conformance report in order for our products to abide by the Colorado's accessibility law, HB 21 TAC 110. Obviously, basic information is needed. So you're going to add your division, your name as the requester, and whether it's a hardware or software or service request. If there's already an RQS number for the request in Service Hub, please let us know. Sorry, in Core, please let us know. If there's a Service Hub ticket, please let us know as well. These are not required. The vendor name, I highly recommend adding a responsive vendor contact here. Include the product name and then provide a business case, one that really outlines what it is that you are looking for in a product and what you're trying to accomplish so that the solution engineer has a full picture of what it is that you're requesting. Then outline, please, what the tool does, how it will help you, and what you're using it for or will be using it for. Just mark whether it's a new product request or if it's a renewal. Renewals still need a reviewing or vetting by the solution engineer, even though we've already assessed it in the past. We will also request whether there's any sensitive data. This includes CGI, FDI, HIPAA, PII, public, sensitive, non-public, SSA, and PCI. Further down, we're going to ask that you attach a quote or any other relevant documents so that we understand and encapsulate the entire picture of the product you're requesting. Additional information If you're not sure as to what teams you might incorporate in this request, please mark it as not sure. And when the solution engineer then reaches out, they can further dive into that with you so that they get a better picture. Again, we just outlined that it does take a 30-day business process to review your request. Once you click submit, that information then goes to our current spreadsheet. And this spreadsheet allows us to see where you are in the process, gathers all that information that we've already outlined, and then we're able to assign the solution engineer and move forward. Once you've submitted that request and it hits our spreadsheet, we do have that 30 days once we've assigned that SE. That is the current process as it stands today. The security questions we've covered, the accessibility questions, these could include the assurance of the software meeting the state's accessibility requirements, including that proof of accessibility for compliance is necessary to really allow CDPS the best step forward in accessibility and to protect us as CDPS employees with the software services or products we're requesting. So what does this mean with regards to the accessibility for the IT procurement process? The solution evaluation will include roughly 20 questions regarding accessibility risk. Some of these are, does the company have an accessibility conformance report? This could look like a VPAT. Does the software meet the WCAG accessibility guidelines for levels AA and A? This is just Colorado's standards of accessibility. The company's operation questions could include prioritization of issues, internal testing, policies, governance, and contact information specific to accessibility. Procurement and questions. Procurement questions could include the terms and conditions that are being met to ensure compliance, again, with state procurement law. This does not preclude communication with your CDPS purchasing members. Please attach a price quote and any other relevant documents. These price quotes have to be within 30 days of the submission. The procurement team has procurement open office hours as well on Wednesdays from 10 to 10:15, and they discuss various topics as listed here. And if you need that link for the open office hours, my apologies, you're more than welcome to email me and I can send that to you. Vendor questions. We really are requesting that we have a responsive vendor, and you can help us by giving them a heads up on the questions for high-risk evaluations. Those high-risk evaluations can jeopardize the purchase of the product or service if we have someone that is not responding to us in a timely manner. Additional information for the vendor could include their contact, the phone number, the email. The more information you can provide us to contact them, the better. IT involvement questions, kind of outlined it previously, but what kind of support does this product need? Will you need to have access to the network, firewall, servers, security? Will desktop need to install this software onto devices for you? Will you need project management or application development? So there is a list there for you to see that we may ask of you. And then where does it go? Again, it goes into our inbox. We receive your submission, and then it's added to our spreadsheet automatically. And once the SE begins working on the vetting process, that is when your 30 business day process starts, in order for them to collect the necessary information from both the requester and the vendor. Our average turnaround time is 14 business days. Once the solution evaluation is complete and submitted to myself or Carolyn, we then take roughly 48 hours to review the risk assessment to determine approval or denial of that request. But please, please, please plan 60 days prior to the expiration date of contracts and agreements to submit that request as a renewal, and also take into account fiscal year end funding. Once we hit that fiscal year end, there is a definite push to get all of our services, products, and software pushed through this process, and we end up with a large backlog. So we highly recommend submitting it 60 days prior. There is a reminder not to use Service Hub at this time to gain approval. Use the current Google form. It is linked in these slides, which will be sent out to you after the end of this training. Desk side tickets are required for installation of software. You will need the approval, however, to move forward with that installation. Business days, again, do not include state holidays or weekends. And if a vendor is offshore or stores data outside of the United States, approval will be unlikely. OIT review needs to occur for each renewal and each business scenario, despite having already been assessed. And this is a big push back from many end users who are requesting products that be renewed that they've been using for many, many years. However, we still need to ensure that these are meeting the security, the compliance for accessibility, as well as procurement law. Any product that requires a logon with a state email address must be reviewed. That's kind of my general rule of thumb. And then going forward in the future state, Carolyn and I have been working very closely with the Service Hub team to establish catalog offerings. These will include software, hardware, and voice requests buttons available to CDPS end users. It will allow us to have easier tracking of tickets for the requester, as well as the solution engineer, myself and Carolyn. So we are all on the same page as to where your request is during the process. We hope that this will increase better turnaround time and notifications to the end users, as well as to ourselves within that process. At this time, software requests is still being built out as we require specific items that have not already been included in that catalog item. So once that is released, there will be notifications coming out. And then I'll be handing over to Lindsay so that she can address the accessibility component and as it impacts our procurement process.
Thanks, Keegan. And are you okay to switch this slide as I go through?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. All right. Again, I'm Lindsay Joseph. I'm the Digital Accessibility Specialist. Thank you all for being here. This slide is just a brief recap to remind us that House Bill 211110 is Colorado's new digital accessibility law that went into effect on July 1st of this year. According to the House bill, state agencies must follow OIT's technology accessibility rules, which define what compliance standards look like for us at state agencies. So the House bill is the overarching civil rights law that prohibits discrimination in our digital products and services. And the OIT rules guide us on how to maintain compliance with that law. So this means if we follow and comply with OIT's rules, which are much shorter and easier to follow, then we are complying with the House bill. Next slide, please. So how do we know if we're in compliance? Remember that accessibility compliance is a moving target, and 100% accessibility is not realistic because there's no universal solution that meets every single accessibility need. So what we need to do is use the OIT rules because these rules demonstrate how to stay in compliance. The OIT rules guide us in these three tenets that are here on the slides, including providing accommodations or modifications upon request, having a published accessibility statement, which I'll share more about on the next slide, and be able to provide evidence of good faith progress on our plans to remove accessibility barriers. And before we move forward, a little bit about what each of these compliance items mean. As far as providing accommodations or modifications upon request, an accommodation is a change or other adjustment made for a single person on an as-needed basis to remove barriers to accessing one of our products or services. Accommodations need to be made if a person with a disability requests them. Regarding the second compliance item, having a published accessibility statement, because we need to make sure people know how to request accommodations if they need them. So it's just going to be important to make sure that you have a clear statement where people can easily find for your product with instructions on how to request an accommodation or modification should they need one. And finally, we need to be able to provide evidence that we're making good faith progress on our accessibility plans. The OIT rules don't specifically prescribe what to include in that plan, but they do give some examples and ideas to get everyone on the same page as far as what plans could look like. So for example, you might provide annual status updates showing your progress, like describing user impact or usage metrics, or a plan could include steps you're taking to improve accessibility over time and the timelines involved with that to remove accessibility barriers. Next slide, please. So I do want to revisit the importance of having a published accessibility statement like we mentioned in the previous slide. On the screen is an example of an accessibility statement, which lets people know how to request accommodations for accessibility. You can use this example here on the screen or your own version when you're posting an accessibility statement within your product. So what should be included in an accessibility statement is displayed here, but I will list it for you just to make it a bit more clear. In your accessibility statement, make sure you note your agency's commitment to accessibility for people with disabilities. Mention the accessibility standard for the state of Colorado, which Keegan mentioned is currently WCAG 2.1, levels A and AA. And then finally, provide 2 modes of contact where users can reach us if they encounter accessibility issues. Next slide, please. Another important aspect of accommodations is how we document them. And one type of documentation for this that might be needed for your product is called an equally effective alternate access plan, which is a really horrific acronym, EEAAP. Bear with me. You should create an EEAAP when you know that a specific product is not accessible for all users. So the EEAAP is really specific because it's written for a particular product. This plan is different from a general accommodations plan, which is the process your organization or division follows when people request accommodations for anything within your division. Rather, the EEAAP says something to the effect of, for this product, these are the accessibility issues that we're aware of. And in the meantime, we know how we're going to help provide accommodations for this specific product. And finally, looking more broadly to your division's general process for requesting accommodations, so not related to EEAAP, I'm addressing the second main bullet on this slide, sample accommodation tracker for internal teams. Again, that's for your broader accommodation request process. Your team should have a system in place to track incoming accommodation requests, which usually includes information like who made the request, what are they requesting, date of that request, who in your division helped them, was it resolved, yes or no, and finally, what was the response or resolution. And that is my piece.
And next, we're going to hear from Corey in regards to the workflow for undue burden. Corey?
Slimsy and Keegan. So the OIT rules also provide us with this scenario for fairly very unique circumstances, and this is the undue burden scenario. So what you see here is the process to go through undue burden. So first, you have to establish that you need this undue burden document for whatever your software is. You'll come to our team to actually discuss it, because a lot of times folks are thinking, I have this thing, I can't possibly make it accessible. And then you come to our team, we can kind of talk through all the different circumstances to make sure that it actually fits those very unique circumstances for undue burden. So come to us if you think you have a case for undue burden, and we'll talk through it. Once you've talked to us about it, we'll help you kind of put your thoughts and rationale into a template that we have for requesting undue burden. So we'll kind of go back and forth with you on that template to try to make that case stronger. We'll let your division director know, or if you've already informed your division director that you are requesting undue burden for this specific piece, we'll just want to verify that they're in the loop. It will go to the Attorney General's office to give some legal advice saying, yes, this is a good case for undue burden, or maybe it's not going to have a good defendable case. You need to try a different route. Once the AG's office gives us their feedback, if Jana Locke, our Deputy Executive Director, feels that it is a good case and we have good rationale, she will sign it and then we have a completed undue burden process. So on the next slide, I'll kind of explain what a unique circumstance is. So Keegan, if you can go to the next one. A unique circumstance that actually comes to mind, I think Helena on the call got it through, and the AG's office said, yes, this is a perfect example, essentially, is there is a software that the federal government requires us to use. So we have very little control to no influence or control over this software. We're not able to go in, put the accommodation statement, or do any of those things that Lindsay was talking about. So we have no control or very, very little influence over what the software looks like, how it works, or anything like that. That unique circumstance, because it's a single thing that the feds are requiring us to use, that is a good case for undue burden. A case where you may be thinking, Corey, that's a good case for undue burden, where I may push back, would be a software for maybe computer-aided dispatch, where it's a unique set of individuals who may be tested for visual impairment at the onset of their job. But when you're looking at undue burden, it may not really qualify for that. Or you may be thinking there's specific tools that we use where only a couple of people use it. And it's really going to be difficult to find a different software that works for it. Well, it may be difficult, but it's not impossible to go and find another piece of software. So the case for undue burden may not apply there. So it's a very small window. And that's why I encourage you to reach out to us to have that discussion if you're thinking that undue burden may apply to the software you are either currently using or hoping to purchase. So I probably muddied the waters a little bit, but I want you to think, okay, if I want undue burden, I'm going to reach out to the operational excellence team to get that discussion going. And Georgie, I see your hands up.
Thanks, Corey. When does this happen within the process for OIT approval? Like, and I don't have a case coming up, but would I reach out to you first and then go through OIT for their stuff? Where does that fit in?
I can answer that, Georgie. So when you're going through that OIT procurement process and you initially have to submit accessibility proof, that's kind of where you start. So when you're looking at the product and you cannot find an accessibility statement from the vendor and you are in discussion with the vendor or you've reached out to them and they're not really responding, but this is a product or service that you feel may benefit CDPS, you would then kind of in tandem and in parallel submit your request while working with Corey and Lindsay to assess whether there's an undue burden. That topic will then come up multiple times in the evaluation from the solution engineer, who can also work with the vendor to find out where they fall with their accessibility, if they're making progress towards accessibility, or if there might be a case with undue burden. So if there is a potential for undue burden, I'm notified, and I typically then reach out to even my team for the OpEx, which is Corey, Lindsay, Lubna, and we go through that accessibility undue burden, and they will then reach out to the requester as well and kind of work with you to determine. So it kind of comes into that process a bit often, I would say. There's multiple steps where it's kind of caught along the way. But great question. Thank you, Georgie.
All right. So on the next slide, just to have the resources here, there's lots of accessibility resources. I'm not going to go through them. And then our team also has office hours every Thursday. So if you're thinking, Corey, your schedule looks crazy, I need to talk to you, or Keegan, how do I get a hold of you? Join us in our office hours every Thursday at 3:05. I'm going to drop a link to it there in the chat. If you click on that link, it will add it to your calendar. And again, it's every Thursday. So pop in with any questions you may have. And with that, what questions do you have for us? We have 25 more minutes, and I'm sure you have lots of questions for us. So throw your hands up or come off mute and ask us questions. Yeah, Michelle or Michael.
So if we want to sorry, gathering my thoughts. I guess using an actual bit of thing that the CBI is concerned about with the replacement of SharePoint, for the CDPS not using it anymore. We would still go through this process if we want to try and get a service that we are already getting from a vendor to enhance their capabilities to cover that, correct? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. So with the SharePoint
Mhm.
project, that is already a project. We would work closely with the IT PMs, and if they determine that there is a new software that you at CBI need to implement in order to come off of SharePoint, you would place that OIT procurement request. We would evaluate it, and then once it's approved, you would then purchase and go forward with that. And then the IT PMs would assist in kind of working with the vendor of that new software or product to move or migrate items from SharePoint over. Does that make sense, Michael?
Yes, but also not exactly what I was asking.
Okay.
So if we wanted to take a software that we are already using from our vendor Logico
Mhm.
and submit a request that will cost money for them to enhance the product to cover that, we would
Yeah.
still do that. Okay.
Yeah, you would still continue with that OIT procurement because it's additional services that had not previously been evaluated in the initial request. So we just want to make sure that the business case aligns with what the vendor is offering to do for that process. Does that make sense?
I believe so.
Okay, so yes, long-ended answer, but yes, you would still use the procurement process. And I'm trying to go in order here. I think Aaron was next.
Yeah, thanks. Right. Sorry. I have a project that I had submitted to Service Hub, as I had been advised to do a few weeks ago. And I don't know that I would call it software, but it has to do with wanting to know if the state wants to be responsible for security stuff for a connection we have with the feds for our department, because things are changing and old stuff's going away and we're figuring out the new version. I don't know if that falls under your software stuff. I don't know if I need to submit a new procurement form now.
So I feel that if it is a demand, it would be going through that demand process. If that's kind of the idea that this could become a very large project for you. So putting it in Service Hub with the demand request is a great starting point. The ITPM and the solution engineers will also look at that and see if there is a need for the software to then be requested through the OIT procurement process. They kind of work hand in hand, if that makes sense. And so if you've placed that, once that is submitted, and the ITPM is designated, whether that's Amy or Craig, you'll start going through the discovery process and gathering that information for requirements, and then they'll go forward with whether we need OIT procurement.
So I've been in touch with Amy already, and Helena, do you want to jump in and explain a little bit better?
We started with the normal CDPS form. It
Mhm.
went through Amy, it went through risk assessment, and it came back to us as you have to take it through your steering group at CDPS to see if you want to keep still paying for this.
Okay.
During that process time, the federal rules changed. And that having that server now requires a yearly process of ISA certification, the requirements of notification if an issue changed, all of these things. And so I was working with the AG's office on that new federal MOU and ISA process when we realized Aaron's project needed to come in. So then we put it in Service Hub at the OIT folks that the AG's office had brought in, Gwendolyn and Megan. And we've heard crickets. So we had a risk assessment. We told Amy the risk assessment wasn't valid. We went through this other process to find out if OIT was willing to take the risk, how much they wanted to charge us for the risk, so that we could then take that and ask a vendor what their take on it was, so the captain can tell us where we're going to spend money. Because
Gotcha.
if you guys don't want it, we have to bid it. And that's where I come in because it'll be grant funded and all those things. How long is the service hubs thing supposed to take? Because it's been there for 20 some days and I
Yep.
can't finish the federal MOU until OIT tells me they want this risk or don't, because I can't have the captain sign the MOU without knowing where that risk is at.
Gotcha. I'm gonna let Carolyn, I think, jump in and speak on this.
Yeah, if you have that ticket number, send it over to me.
Okay.
I'll see what's going on with it.
Thank
That'd
you.
be amazing. Carolyn, this is linked to the stuff you're already evaluating for DriveWise and Seaview. This is the third thing that needs to go under that same MOU.
Okay,
Got it.
What's
I'm just
it
taking
called?
notes.
just so I can, what is this one called?
This one you can think of as the internal Colorado Safety Repository. It may have the word safety net in it, but safety net is also a federal program that's dying. So we're trying to differentiate.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Lena and Aaron, if you could send over that ticket number, we're more than happy to look into that a bit further.
Okay. Thank
Great.
you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Austin, I believe you were next.
Thanks. So about the renewal, about the required review for renewing software, there's going to be, I can imagine there's going to be software that to most of our users are kind of invisible. You know, they've been using it for so long, they don't really think about it renewing. Is someone going to reach out to proactively engage people and let them know, hey, there's this new process that we got to go through on renewing software, or is it just going to get turned off, or, you know, how are we going to know?
So part of my job as the
Mhm.
technology product director is looking over our tech plan workbook. And included in that is software that we have identified as used at CDPS. The problem we've run into again is that
Mhm.
due to this process kind of being a newer process, some people have fallen through the cracks with software they've purchased previously in P cards and not
Yeah.
through the procurement process. If we're aware of a renewal coming up, I attempt to send out those notifications. The hardest part about that is not knowing. So I can only catch so many. Typically what you'll find is if someone did purchase it, they're using the software, that person then left and it got handed over to somebody else. They are not aware of that renewal need because it could have been a 2-year, 5-year, so forth agreement. There might be a possibility that it would be turned off, unfortunately. I am attempting to catch everyone as best as I can. But if you are utilizing software at the moment and you do not have a product owner identified, please let me know what that software is and I can review the tech plan workbook and see if it's even identified as a software at CDPS. And we can work together to ensure that you go through the proper process for renewal. And we can reach out to the vendor, find out, what that looks like.
Okay.
I hope that helps.
Well, okay. So I'm gonna restate that in my words.
Go for it.
And Carolyn knows my style, and in kind of a confrontational way to get to the point of what we're talking about here. What you know, and you'll try to help, but what you don't know might fail.
Right.
Okay. Then also to follow up on that, then there was kind of a lean into federal systems. So let's say, we work with FEMA every day. We input stuff into FEMA. You are not suggesting that OIT is going to enforce a policy on FEMA's input system. You're talking about if we have a system on our network that was owned by a federal system, right? Not federal systems we interact with.
It's kind of both. We're not going to try to impose our regulations on the feds, but we need to work with them to partner to make sure that we have the proper tie-ins needed for firewall, network, and so forth. So if there is a system that FEMA utilizes that they have input, and we just want to make sure that those systems are properly talking and that we're not putting a firewall block on something that FEMA needs you to add input or vice versa and export. So it's really in tandem together to work in that partnership with the federal side and OIT. Does that make sense? Go ahead.
That's all right. I'm going to jump in. as the role of the product owner, and again, if you don't have one, there's the first problem, but it really falls to the product owner to be able to know when something is up for renewal and get those requests in advance.
Okay. I mean, the only thing I would request is please over communicate as much as possible, because I know there's going to be systems like we share with DCJ or we share with, another unit. And I don't know who your like we might have on our records, hey, I'm the product owner, but really the one that you have on file is over at DCJ. They can't prove undue, but I could possibly, you know what I'm saying? Like there's,
Yes.
so please, just given the changes, make sure that you're way over communicating. Thank you.
Yes. And just so everyone on the call is aware, there is going to be a new newsletter starting in September. It's called the TPD Corner Newsletter, and I will be communicating much information through there as much as possible. I'm trying to add more transparency on projects, operational and strategic, trying to be more transparent in the OIT procurement process as it moves hopefully into Service Hub. So you will be seeing those coming from me in September, starting the first week. But thank you, Austin. Okay, next I have Alyssa.
Hi, thank you. I have a question around kind of talking about the process for if someone has submitted a procurement request for a product and has received an approval, and then we have another individual that's submitted for that same software and receives a denial. Can you talk about the process for having kind of the two different decisions on the same product and how that would come back to the first person that maybe is already using that software after purchasing it, and just how that will work within this process?
Sure. So typically what happens if you have someone working on one software with an approval and one without, the typical reason they were denied is because the business case scenario did not align with that product. It's not usually because of the high risk nature of accessibility. That's what I have found in my time with CDPS, is that it is due to the business case. And if that denial is given, they can always appeal that denial by coming back to Carolyn or myself and asking for an appeal. And then we can take it forward to the IT steering committee. And what that might mean is either the business case wasn't strong enough or didn't outline enough. And really it's just might be a rewrite of that business case, or the end user that, or the requester that placed that request wasn't responsive when the solution engineers were attempting to gain more information on their request.
Okay, I think our experience has been that the business cases have been exactly the same.
Okay.
And that it actually has been because of the accessibility piece, and when someone has reached out to the vendor for those accessibility documents, I think the vendor was a little less responsive to those requests. But also I think from our perspective, talking about accessibility more generally, about the risk of, how can we prioritize making things accessible, looking at the risk of, okay, who's using it? Is this public facing or is this internal staff that are using it? How many are using it? It feels like this product specifically would have fallen very low on that risk, whereas it's only, a handful of internal staff that would ever be using it. Nothing would be public facing. So I think that's another question that I have, is just around how you're evaluating the accessibility risk in terms of like internal use versus public use of a software.
Right. I'm more than happy to take a look at that denial if you want to send that my way so that I can take a look at that personally. Typically, the solution engineers are the ones that are looking at all the accessibility information and determining public versus internal, what that looks like. If something was missed, we're all human, we're more than happy to review that again. But as far as the accessibility piece versus public versus internal, we have to accommodate internal staff just as much as the public. It just depends on, again, that undue burden piece, whether the software cannot accommodate accessibility, but it is a required software for your particular job. Such as a federal software that is designated for specifically, let's say CBI has to use CODIS. They have to. If it's not meeting their accessibility needs, they need the undue burden. So yeah, I'm more than happy, Alyssa, to take a a look at the approval and the denial that you received on that particular product. And then there also could be a potential licensing item in there that we can look at to say, is there something for the internal staff to be on an enterprise license agreement for a better price? And how can we assist with that as well?
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Christina.
I apologize. I had to find the unmute button. So being over here, I'm having and I'm not an IT person. OIT don't have no type of background in it whatsoever. But my concern lies into with all these updates and software, being pushed out. I have nowhere to reference to be a good RAM or what type of laptop I need to be looking for in order to turn around and be able, because I'm having issues where it's heating up, it's slower, and then when I go to OIT, they tell me, oh, well, go look on the website, and it doesn't seem as though it's been updated. I'm still seeing i5. There's no recommendations from OIT like, hey, this will be a good. Is that something that you guys are going to do? Or do I have to ask that question? Because right now I would like to turn around and for CDPS one and for us to become one, where if people have been here for a while, hey, these are the laptops that we have. This is the laptops that OIT, because recently we just had an issue with OIT rejecting an Acer one, and because of a re-image. And the concern lies into where there was nothing for me to reference if a brand or a manufacturer was going to be rejected. So therefore, we spent that money, waited over 30 days to even receive an answer for us to tell us, for somebody to tell us that it was rejected. So you can see how those problems keep compiling. And I'm just trying to see if I can get some more transparency on what I need to purchase on our end to turn around and have more people more successful and having more faith in OIT as well as the laptops that are purchased for them.
Perfect. Thank you, Christina. Carolyn, do you want to jump on that one for hardware?
Yeah, and this is a unique one. So Christina, would you mind, if you already have a ticket, send me that ticket number, and if you don't, just I'm asking for an email just so I can forward it on to the desk side folks, but I want to have this conversation. I had a similar, I needed to replace my PC, and I didn't really know what to ask for, so I just guess I got the default model. It's kind of big and heavy, so send me what you're looking for, and we may have to have a meeting with Lucas to get this squared away.
Yes, ma'am. So will the policy be changed in? So, because we bought, I don't know if we put how do you say, you put the tail before the dog or the tail before the horse. So we have went through the approval process like we were supposed to, and it was approved. So I'm just trying to is there going to be another way for us to know before we purchase this? Because we were going off the approval, you know what I'm saying, ma'am?
So are you saying you selected computers that were not approved?
No. That's a problem. I don't know which computers was approved. I had sent in the approval to and the end user and everything like I was supposed to. Everything was approved. However, it rejected a re-image. Now, the OIT personnel said, oh, it's the processor, which is not factual because the HP that we buy is Intel. And the one that we just got rejected was Intel. So it kind of made me lose faith in, okay, is it the Intel? Does OIT know what they're talking about? Is it, because I know from Mac, and this is not to be disrespectful in any kind of shape, form, or fashion. None. But it's just want to make sure why everything is, upgrading and everything is coming out and everything is the best. And you know what I'm trying to say? I just want to make sure that we're spending money and we know we can utilize this asset.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will look into this one with you, Christina, and get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. I'll get all the information. It'll probably take me till today is Thursday, right? Today's Wednesday?
Yes.
Ooh.
Thursday, I'm out tomorrow as well, and Monday.
Okay, I'll get all the information for you. You will have it no later than the end of next week. Would you also like me to CC Keegan on this one?
Yes, please.
Heather,
Yes, I'll get all the information because it was a couple of months ago, but I'm gonna get you guys all the information.
Thank you, Christina. We'll
Thank
hopefully get to the bottom of that. All right, and then Ryan, I believe you're the last hand up, and I do have some questions, I believe, in the chat, but I'll go with Ryan.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Sweet. I had a question about kind of like the different levels of OIT approval we need to get in the like procurement process. So we do the OIT procurement form and we get like eventual approval for that. What is the level 9 OIT approval that we also need to get on our RQSs in core? What's the difference?
Carolyn, do you want to speak on that?
so you're asking for what's the difference in the approval that you get in the procurement process versus the one in core?
Mhm.
Okay, so I don't have access to core, but I'll explain the way I understand it. There's one step in there called step 5, it's OIT pre-approval. And that's the one that you all work with us. It's basically the OIT procurement process. So the output of that process will be usually Keegan sending you an email approved, and you can attach that to step 5. And that gets you through that pre-approval. And then, sorry, my camera's off. Didn't know that. And then it goes, it's level 10 or 11, and it goes to a senior OIT approver. Those get approved at 3 o'clock every day. So if you submit it in the morning, it should be same day. And honestly, I don't know who does those approvals. It's a kind of a round robin between Lucas and network leads, but that's just a more formal OIT sign off. And honestly, whether it's valuable or not, I don't know, but that is a statewide approval step on procurements. The step 5 I mentioned is unique to CDPS, and it's actually been a very valuable approval step because we are the leaders in getting all of our stuff approved. So we're doing a great job.
Who would I contact then with questions about this extra level? Because it just kind of seems a little unnecessary. And I don't think they are approving them at 3 p.m. Because I had an RQS that I was set on for like 2 days. And I actually had to end up submitting a ticket. And they went through the ticket process to get me that approval in core.
Talk to me.
Sorry, Caroline, who was that?
Work with me and I'll help you take that up.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thanks.
Perfect. And then there's a question here. If there are free versions of Chrome extensions or software, do I need to use the procurement process outlined? If there's extensions available, so those have to be essentially whitelisted by OIT in the marketplace for Chrome extensions, and they are available for you to install, you can go ahead and do so without the procurement process. If there are ones that when you click on them in the marketplace that are denied and says you need administrative rights, those need to go through the procurement process for us to then request OIT to whitelist them and add you to the appropriate approval group to turn those on. Some may not be approved. There are Google authenticators that we are reviewing right now. One comes from a third-party vendor that is offshore. That one is denied due to it being in Germany and collecting data, and third-party vendors not agreeing to the data that is collected being protected via security. So if it is available to you in the Chrome marketplace, I'm just reiterating this, and you can click on it and go through the install process, it is whitelisted by OIT. If it comes up with the error of run as administrator or need administrative rights, you will need to have that go through the OIT procurement process. Lemna, does that make sense? Thank you. Got the thumbs up.
Yeah, and just a follow up to that. So if let's say I have access to a P card and I can just go out and buy stuff. So just to clarify, I would still need to put all that information in the procurement process, correct?
Correct. And it's highly recommended that we don't use P cards for software and go through
It's
this proper
prohibited.
process. Sorry, Carolyn?
It's prohibited by OIC.
Yes. And then to Courtney Dibble, she's asking if this is recorded. Yes, it is recorded, and I will be sharing it with all the attendees today, as well as with CDPS staff. I see Pilars. Can you filter to approved for you in the Google Marketplace too? Yes, you can. Thanks, Corey. Carolyn and Amy keep a good list of new product requests in process. Can I suggest a master list of renewals is also shared to help everyone stay on top of their requests? I'm working on that, Austin, with the Tech Plan Workbook 2.0. So we're still working through that. And then I see, is it Lewis?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, no, and that's just kind of more suggestions. One suggestion that I have that I noticed the last time that I own 3 or 4 products. So when you guys submit a question to the vendor, I think it would be nice to include the project owner or the person who submitted, because sometimes I already have that answer for you guys because I've been dealing with the vendors, sometimes 7-10 years, and I might already have that information or I know how to get faster. So, and I don't see a fall on that, right? Kind of, and also I know that that process is going, so we give that transparency of information, right? And that, I think that speed it up, because one of my products one time get cut up because the vendor didn't answer. I know that you say you have to tell the vendor, but I can't control the vendor, right? Sometimes I know, see if that vendor don't answer, I know who to go to. So just by including the project owner or the person who submit, that might speed up you guys' process too.
Got it. Thank you, Louis. I will make that recommendation to our solutions evaluators, the engineers, and ask that you guys be included on that when they do reach out to the vendors. So thank you for that suggestion. All right. So there's a few more. I know we're at time. There are no extensions in the state executive branch section of the Google Web Store. If you go to the little icon for extensions, it looks like a puzzle piece to the top right of Chrome. You can go to manage extensions. And there, if you go to browse, going through it right now, you go in and you can search extensions there, or there's other ways to get to the Chrome Web Store itself on the left-hand side, and you can look at extensions as well there. Yes, I see under the state executive branch that there's only some recommended and privated items. That doesn't mean that they are blocked necessarily. It's just not a list. I believe, and I can write a quick little guide on what extensions are available. I know there's a way.
Yeah, Wendy, I see exactly what you're talking about. On the marketplace apps, you can filter to all the ones that are approved. On the Chrome extensions, I don't see a way to do that. So it might just be a limitation.
Yeah, I will look and try to make a quick guide on that. Thank you, Wendy, for bringing that up and get that sent out. It might also be included in that newsletter, the TPD corner. So I will add that extension guide.
And I don't want to interrupt, but there's actually a little way to filter approved for you in the Google Marketplace that might help.
That's what I was trying to recall, definitely. So I will, like I said, I'm going to review that, get a bit more educated on how to guide you there and send out that guide. But thank you so much. Approved for you. Okay, and then since CSP is going paperless, is there something planned with OIT support to handle a blanket purchase of Adobe Pro user licenses as we do enterprise licenses? Carolyn, you want to speak to that one?
We do have a blanket approval for Adobe and for Word, or not Word, Microsoft. So it's, you can just link to it right from the procurement process. It should be Adobe Pro. If it's not, I'll fix it. Let's see.
Yeah,
Adobe
Janice.
Pro.
Because Adobe Reader should be installed upon the computers already. If there isn't, that's just a quick Service Hub ticket.
Yeah, the Pro is, we definitely have a
We
link
do have,
it.
Mhm.
Uh,
So we will get that to you, Jennifer.
It's linked right into the process.
Do you want to drop that link in the chat? Thank you. And if there's no other questions, we're happy to let you go. We appreciate you jumping on with us, and I'll stay by for any additional questions. And again, this is being recorded, so we'll send it out at the end of this training. And if you have any questions, comments, and concerns that pop up during the day that you didn't ask here, feel free to email me. It's Keegan, Keegan .Wilson, regular spelling WILSON @state.co.us. And I typically respond within 48 hours. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Have a great day.